right. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Claire. How's it going?
Is the name on your birth certificate Thomas?
It is.
Were you ever called Thomas?
I mean, maybe my wife, if she wants to like pick on me or something like that.
Okay, but never like a thing. Awesome.
It's not, no, not really a thing.
Tom. All right. Well, hello, Tom. So I'd love to just kind of introduce you to folks who don't already know you. So Tom Morkes was born in the Chicagoland area, grew up in West Michigan with his 3 brothers and 3 sisters. That's a ton of siblings. And attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he double majored in human geography and Russian and fought on the boxing team. After graduating, Tom served 5 years as a commissioned officer, including a deployment to Iraq as a gun truck security platoon leader. Tom is the CEO of Insurgent Publishing, a book marketing and publishing company. He's the creator of PublishersEmpire.com, a book launch platform and private self-publishing community, and the author of The Art of Instigating, Notes from Seth Godin's Revolution Conference, The Complete Guide to Pay What You Want Pricing, and his 4th book, Collaborate. Tom writes a blog at tommorkes.com where he applies what he's learned leading troops in combat to the world of entrepreneurship, writing, and art. Check him out and say hi. He says he loves when you do that, and we hope he's being honest about that. So thank you. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to just, for you to give us just a little bit more sort of flavor on who you are and how you came to be sitting here with the cool bookshelf behind you. Maybe some things that I did not say in those 3 paragraphs.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I spent 5 years as a commissioned officer after West Point. I was a captain in the Army when I got out. I used to jump out of helicopters in my last year. I was I was a company, headquarters commander for a special forces group. And I was not special force, but we were in the group. I was a headquarters company commander. And, so we were part of an airborne unit, which is pretty cool. So we got to jump out of a lot of helicopters, which was pretty nuts. Then when I got out, actually, I had started this kind of stuff, this online blogging and just online stuff, I call it, when I was in the Army, like that last year or 2 I was in. And, I got out end of 2013. And I had basically committed a year or 2 before that I was going to go take a year off to travel, no matter what, before I figured out what I was going to do next. At the time, I actually thought I was going to probably come back, take not the bar, but take whatever that thing is to go to law school or maybe a GMAT or something like that and go to business school. I figured those were my 2 routes. But I had started this online thing, this blog. So I was like, okay, I'm going to still take the year off. I'm going to still travel. At this point, though, I had a wife now, so it was my wife and I. We were going to go travel, and I told her, "Hey, let's. I'm going to try this online stuff while we travel." She was a yoga instructor, so she taught yoga while we traveled around the world, and I blogged and built up a company that is now Insurgent Publishing, where it started as a publishing company, but it's kind of pivoted like 3 or 4 times to what it is today, where we do these strategic book and product launches. So we launch books and we launch digital products like courses and membership sites and things like that. And an extension of this is what we were talking offline was like doing affiliate management and stuff like that. Kind of to that end is kind of where we're at now, where we do this kind of full comprehensive product launch initiative. So that's working with guys like John Lee Dumas on the Freedom Journal, which almost made almost a half, did almost at $500,000. It set a Kickstarter record, and in its subcategory, it was the number 6 most crowdfunded book. Working with guys like Neil Patel now on his next book, Brian Harris on 10K subs, and Ash Moria, author of Running Lean. Like a lot of people who I'm name dropping because I admire these people, but you guys also might recognize them. But that's kind of the space that we're in. So yeah, we ended up traveling around the world for a year. And my objective was to not go into too much debt. Like I was willing, I had said on paper, I'm okay going $20,000 into debt because I know I can work that off. Because I had no student loan debt because I was good that way. And I came back broke even. There was no debt from that year because I was able to make money working online. So we decided to go another year of travel abroad. So we did it twice. So we did 2 years of traveling abroad. We finally landed back in the States this last fall and moved just outside of Aspen, Colorado, where we have this amazing house that we just bought that sits on 20 acres and has a view of, we're in the mountains, like we're mountain people, which is pretty crazy with this view of this gorgeous mountain, Mount Sopris. And I'm very happy to be here, and life's worked out for us so far.
20 acres. Wow. That is so cool. Okay. And then
we're getting chickens later today.
Really? Really?
Yep.
That's so bold of you.
I know. We'll see how it goes.
I am kind of scared of chickens. So, okay, in your 2 years abroad, how much time did you spend in Russia?
Good question. So I actually spent none of those 2 years abroad in Russia. I wanted to, but we did the other countries around it. I spent about 4.5, 5 months when I was in school. I did a semester abroad in Voronezh, just south of Moscow.
Okay.
And also when I was in the military, I spent time in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan.
Wow.
And I trained at the Uzbekistani military academy there. They're a tank academy where we drove tanks and shot their Kalashnikovs. And they all speak Russian in the military in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan because of, their history. So yeah, I've had a decent amount of time in the old Soviet Socialist Republic.
That is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I have spent some weeks in Russia, and most notably, I had this lifelong dream to travel the Trans-Siberian Railroad, and I got on, and then I think it took us 30 hours to decide we hated it, and we got off and flew the rest of the way. So
it was super. It's kind of cramped and sweaty.
The dust, and it was just so much dust coming in those cracks. But in any case, I'm really excited to talk to you, and what I want to talk about, kind of to get going, is this idea of profit, really, sort of generally speaking. And I love that you've basically built the business as you know it today while you're kind of traveling around the world and living kind of the life you want to live. And I think it relates to kind of my first question for you. You talk about going to see the Steve Jobs movie and kind of having this like revelation of sorts while in it about this idea of kind of finding your ideal customer. And I think it's a really interesting idea because many of us, and probably many of the clients you've worked with out there who do stuff online, as you said, is that it?
That's the technical term for it.
Right. Don't really have much of a sense of what our ideal customer is. And so we just say things like, I want to sell something to everyone. And if I just get 1% of all the people in the world who care about puppies to buy my puppy ebook, then I'll be wealthy forever. So in any case, tell me what you mean by this whole thing of the ideal customer and why it matters so much.
It's so tough because it's really hard to explain without it coming off too cliched. Because I mean, at least if somebody's listening to this has listened to a lot of other things or read a lot of stuff online, you probably heard people talk about your avatar or your target customer and stuff like that. And fundamentally, what comes down to is who's the person who's actually buying whatever it is that you're selling, whatever that is. And I think a lot of times we use vague generalities or cover up for not actually knowing. And so things like anybody who loves this book it's a picture book about dogs. I'm going to sell it to people who love dogs. It's arguably just as useless as saying it's for anybody. And again, so these vague generalities. So the challenge here. So the thing itself is who are you actually selling to? Who's buying? And that person usually fits an archetype because it's usually not random. Statistically, it's usually not random who's buying X, Y, or Z. This is what companies do. If you look at successful companies, my brother was a distributor for a beer company, and I won't name names, but they were talking about who's the demographic for it was not Coors Light or something like that, but it was interesting. They know exactly who is their demographic for who drinks this beer. It's males, mostly Hispanics in this area of the country. And you're like, wow, that's really incredibly precise. And we don't have to get necessarily just like that, but we shouldn't shy away from saying that the archetype of the person who buys this is probably X, Y, and Z. And if you look at all the big businesses, all the big companies, Apple does it. Every major corporation does it. Tesla does it. Tesla's not selling to everybody, guys and girls. Seriously, their archetype when it first started, it was pretty clear. They're genius. They're a great example of a modern company who understands the archetype of who they're selling to, which are these people who have lots of money, who think that it's good, who have the money to spend on something that makes them look cool and also progressive. And if you think about that, that whittles that down of who that first person is going to be who buys that car. But now that and as you can see, their strategy all along has been start with this hyper lucrative marketplace, or lucrative is probably the wrong word, but this hyper well-off group of people who I just described, and then slowly move out to the bigger mass market, which they've done more recently. And they haven't even really hit mass market yet. But with their most recent, what is it, the Model E or something like that, they just had 400,000 pre-orders and won't be out for like till 2020.
That's amazing.
It's insane. It's ridiculous. But they've done a great job of just like slowly but surely opening with every new product that they release. They've expanded that user base. But I'll tell you what, they know exactly who it is. So when it comes to this question, it's who are you selling to? It's who's that person who's buying. And you can usually do this. If you're just starting from scratch, I usually challenge you to think of who are actually the first 10 people who are going to buy and actually know who they are. Because that's how I started. That's how a lot of people start, actually. It's actually knowing who are the first 10, who are the first 20, who are the first 50, who are the first 100 people who are going to buy from you. And it's really easy to do online. And you have this advantage that bigger companies don't. Because the bigger companies can only work in demographics. They can only say, okay, our demographic is this male, 22 to 27. He's really into Halo. So we're going to release this new Tostitos pizza to him or something like that because that's what he eats. And they can only work in those really generalities, but you have the ability to actually get and connect with those individuals and see if that's actually something that they will want to buy. The big companies can't do that. So the challenge, but also I think both the biggest challenge and your biggest leverage point is the fact that you have to get to know who those first 10 customers are. You have to get to know who those first 100 customers are if you're starting from scratch.
I mean, I love this idea that you're saying that you as sort of an individual or as a, an entrepreneur with a small team behind you or whatever have an advantage that big companies don't. I know many of us have heard, oh, it's good to be lean or whatever, but hearing that there's an actual advantage to being lean is really powerful.
Yeah, and big companies can't do it. They can't afford to. They've hit when they start hitting their quotas and stuff like that, they have to rely on these large demographic, shotgun blasts to a certain market. And you and I don't have to do that. We can actually go into a Facebook group about puppies, or in this case, since I'm getting chickens later today, about chickens and people who raise chickens, and I can connect with them and I can start talking. Because I'll tell you what, I might be a customer soon of something chicken related. Possibly a course on it, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, where whoever's going to end up selling to me on this is going to be somebody who is either in those groups communicating or is doing the more savvy stuff where they're somehow buying lists and being able to retarget my interest because of where I go online. Because I'm going maybe to a chicken website or something like that, or chicken group. And all of a sudden, that's where you can get really savvy. And again, even on a budget, you can do things like Facebook retargeting. You do paid marketing. Retargeting is a great way to, I won't get into details unless you guys want to, but it's just a great cheap way to now put that thing that you're selling in front of people who are actually already interested. And they're interested because they went to website X, Y, or Z and they clicked on these buttons. So again, that's it. It's understanding who's that person who's probably most likely to buy. Not everybody's going to go buy chicken stuff or a course on chickens. I might because I'm getting chickens. So, but you won't know that necessarily unless you've had this conversation with me, number one. So that's the best way to do it, is figure out, actually have conversations with your potential customer with it. So if you have a chicken course, it's actually talking to people like me who are getting ready to buy chickens. And then the second thing is just paying attention through these tools that we have online, like retargeting, like Facebook Pixels can track everything. Everything's being tracked online, get over it, but use it to your advantage as a business person and recognize that, every person's moves are being tracked, and you can go ahead and just be smart about thinking, okay, if I'm creating a course on chickens, I'm going to look at people who have recently gone to a chicken website or recently visited some kind of group. And now all of a sudden you can put an ad in front of them without actually having necessarily talk to them. Again, I think that's a little bit more higher end. And when you're bootstrapping, it's not quite as accessible. Sure. But I think fundamentally it's the same message. You need to figure out who the customer is and you need to get in front of them.
So, okay, figuring out who the customer is and then getting in front of them. And then if you're you tell them to pay what they want.
So I use pay what you want pricing a lot.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. It doesn't work for everybody, but I don't think any type of, that's the truth with anything. Not everything works for everybody. So I use pay what you want pricing for, I guess, a couple ways, the ways I use it. Now, so I wrote a book called The Complete Guide to Pay What You Want Pricing. If anyone's interested in pay what you want pricing, I would say go to tommorkes.com/pay PWYW course. It's a free 7-day course. It's just totally free. It's not pay what you want, but on pay what you want price, and that goes into it. Or you can check out my book, which is pay what you want, which is not. So it's very meta that way. But the point of it was that when I first got started online, I was kind of scared to actually sell the stuff I was writing, like the books that I had created. So I had heard a story about these guys, the Veneri brothers, who are kind of buddies of mine now because we've since kind of worked together and stuff like that. They're really great guys. And they were in the fitness space, which is hyper competitive, and they were making, I don't know, $200,000 to $300,000 a year, and they were doing it through pay what you want pricing of all their products and services, which I was like, or at least products. I was like blown away. And hearing that, I was like, well, if they can do it in the fitness space, surely I can do it where I have a blog, I have a readership, I have people who come back to me consistently. I can probably put it on a book and just see what happens. And so for me, I used it as an experiment to kind of get over my fear of charging, which it definitely did that. In the first month, I made up $500, which isn't a ton of money, but at the time I had like, I don't know, 100 people who were subscribers. It was just starting out as the first money I ever made online, really, from something I had created. So it was really, whoa, like that was incredible that it was happening. I remember getting paid. It was a Sunday and we were out like getting brunch and getting those little things on my phone. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this is insane. So that's how I started. And I've continued to use it because a few reasons. And again, we can go into as much depth as you want, but the main reasons I use it is because one, it lowers the barrier to entry to essentially zero if you put it at 0+. So now anybody can get anything, which is great, which means potentially when I use it through Gumroad. So I actually get people it actually becomes like a lead magnet for me. But it's cool. Not only is it a lead magnet, but one, it's a lead magnet where it's not just free. People know that it should have a price on it, but I'm choosing to make the price whatever you want because I price anchor it. So people see that it actually has value. I'm just being generous by dropping the price. The second thing is it removes the ceiling. And so a lot of people get caught up in the fact that pay what you want pricing, it lowers the barrier to entry. So people always think, well, anyone can get it for free. And it's true. The majority of people will take things for free, or they will take it for the least amount that they can. But not everybody. And you actually don't need everybody. You can actually have the majority of people take something for free and still make more than you would through fixed pricing, because the small percentage of people who do not have a cap now on what they can spend for your product or service. So I learned that firsthand when people are contributing 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, $100 for a book of mine, that if I had put it on Amazon for $2.99, I doubt I would have gotten, number one, as many sales, two, definitely not as much revenue. It would have been impossible. And that's been kind of the same statistically with everyone who I've interacted with who's done the pay what you want experiment, going from a fixed price. Like ebook is a great example because it's low. There's a lot of reasons for it, but we've done a lot of experiments with ebooks and stuff like that. And that's almost across the chasm. That's the trend we've seen. More sales and then ultimately more revenue because of the small percentage of people who actually contribute at or above what the price would have been fixed at. And so there's a lot of companies that do this. Humble Bundle does it. They're an amazing example. And of course, you know, there's artists like Radiohead did it for one of their albums, and it was like the most, I think it was the highest revenue producing album, if I'm not mistaken, that they had ever done up to that point.
Wow.
And then you look at who is it? The other super famous. There's tons of examples, but so I won't go into that. But that's kind of why I tested it, and that's why I used it. And oh, bless you. And I would say that I still use it for a lot of my books for that very reason, because again, I know these books I could charge a price for them, but I like the fact that one, I can get it to anybody who wants them, so people can, you know, because another thing people don't think about is what is that person in another country whose, you know, average annual GDP is like $1,000 a year.
Right.
That person doesn't have, it just you immediately exclude them, even if you have a $10 product in a lot of ways.
Right.
So by doing this now, I open myself up to the broader international market too, and I get that feedback too from people too, which is good. So it just depends. It depends on your business model. It depends on what you care about and what you want to prioritize.
So just to dig down a little bit, how much of the time these days do you do pay what you want pricing, or did you see it as more of an entry strategy? I mean, it sounds like you're not saying it's an entry strategy because you think on certain products you're actually earning more. The average cost ends up being more than it would be, but it's not like everything on your site or everything that you sell is pay what you want.
Yeah, so I did pay what you want consulting for a while, and that was great too
Wow.
because I was testing out what would people pay me per hour, and
Wow.
I think I averaged like over the course of like 2 months, $168 or something like that per hour, and that was when I was just getting started.
You did pay what you want consulting. That is fascinating.
Yep. And yeah. And so again, there's just like certain like tactical things you got to be careful of when you put this out there. Like that's the thing. Some people are like, oh, I'm just going to switch from a $200 price point to like pay what you want. And then they get downloads, nobody pays anything. And then they're like, oh, well, that didn't work. There's like certain things you need to do to like really to like act, to prep and to essentially prep your audience for something that's pay what you want. I've been doing that for a long time. Like the people who read my stuff, and at that point, I've been writing about pay what you want pricing for a long time. I'd explained how it worked. But when you try something like this, you have to have a user base that understands it. Otherwise, yeah, what are people going to do? They're either going to be scared of it and run away from it, or they're going to take it for free. And so again, you have to train your audience to understand it. So again, if you go this direction kind of fully, that has to be education has to be part of it. And I think that's the trend with, there's tons of restaurants who, not tons, but there's definitely dozens that I've written about in my book of restaurants that use this. There's a winery in Germany, there's a brewery in Australia. There's all sorts of places that have used this that are physical based companies too that use this, and that it can work. And again, part of what they do though that works so well is they educate, because if you don't educate, then people won't get it. They won't get why. There has to be a strong why behind a pay what you want anything, but it definitely a business that leads as pay what you want. There has to be a strong why. There has to be a strong connection to the user, to the customer. So I don't do pay what you want consulting anymore. I just don't have the time. I still do pay what you want for a lot of my books, and every now and then I'll offer something that has a fixed price on a higher end tier as pay what you want. I do know people who still use pay what you want pricing, kind of as a consistent like sales pricing strategy. But they have to be careful. Like again, if something is kind of pay what you want forever and new people come into your platform and they don't get inculcated into the why behind it, then you risk losing potential money and customers and stuff like that, because again, it's kind of scary. So I would say that I still think it works. I know it works. I still use it for my books. And it just depends, again, kind of what your objectives are with it, and if you're willing to kind of invest in the time it takes to educate, and if there's a good reason for it. I think, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So, okay, so as you see yourself going forward, you've had success. You had a 6-figure year online last year. You're rocking it. Do you think this will continue to be a part of your model, especially since you've now educated your audience this way?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it will be, and I don't mind. The nice part is, so I have some things that are like, there's certain things I definitely think it will be. I'll continue to do this. I think for a lot of my books, I want to continue to do that. I think for a lot of the things that I create, I want it to be pay what you want, to make it as accessible as possible. But I'm also I do like experimentation. I like being able to test out different things. So I'm also not hardline, like everything I make has to be pay what you want. It's not kind of ever been the point of what I do. I did like to do it as an experiment. For me, it was an entryway. A big reason for testing it out, one, again, was getting over that fear, which I've gotten over. Now I'm not scared of charging. But the second thing, too, was then creating a book around it, an info product around it. It was also saying, I don't have any experience online. My background in the military made me not useful at all anywhere in the world, basically, if you think about it. So I had no skill set that I could actually bring online. And so I just treated it as if I was a research student, and this was my research project. And it allowed me to get a foothold in the online space, because a lot of people were using pay what you want pricing and would write like a blog post about it, but nobody actually had a comprehensive resource. So I was like, okay, boom, people have written about it, people respond to this. I tested out a couple blog posts on different people's websites, like Fizzle. At the time it was Think Traffic, got a ton of responses and questions about it. I was like, this is it. This is my validation that people care about this. I'm going to write a book about it, put this together. And, again, that ended up blowing up to some degree. And I got on things like Growth Hacker TV, next to like I don't know, like the founders of Twitter or something like that. Like these are ridiculously like well-known people, and somehow my face got featured there. And it was a great way to get a ton of traffic early and a ton of recognition on lots of websites, lots of podcasts. And I probably did 100 podcasts, 100, I don't know, at least 100 probably in that first 12 months after it. So it was from the product itself was strategic in terms of saying, I see this is something people are interested in, but nobody's capitalized on it. And I don't need to be an expert in it to do the research, kind of as a student, and approach it as a student, somebody learning and saying, let's pull together the data, let's do the interviews, let's get case studies, let's pull it all together and see if there's a formula that people use to make this successful. And that's kind of basically what I did.
Okay, so one sort of last question on this topic. If I'm coming to you, I'm someone, and I have, had some success online. I've done some products, done some launches, but I've always kind of wanted to try Pay What You Want and wanted to see what it might do for me and my business. What would be my first step?
I think first step is going through my free course. I think it's probably the most comprehensive thing out there to just get an understanding of like, I say that there's like, I call it, the 6-step perfect pitch framework that walks you through kind of like 6 elements you need to put in play to like actually put a pay what you want product out there the right way, so people don't just like, again, don't run away or pay the least or just take it for free. Yeah. So to mitigate that, there's certain things you do. And so those are kind of 6 main things. It's things like price anchoring is still important. It's important for fixed price products too. But having a human one-to-one connection is important. It sounds like common sense, but if McDonald's comes out with a pay what you want Big Mac, why would I pay more than whatever minimum they set for it? I have no relationship with McDonald's, neither the person or the corporation. It's a corporation. But for the person who runs maybe a coffee shop down the street or a roastery or something like that, where I walk in and I see the person, it's kind of more artisanal, if you will. Something like that is where it's most appropriate to use pay what you want pricing, and it's actually going to work, because then I have a human connection to that person and can kind of connect with them on a human level, which is where pay what you want works. It doesn't work at the corporate level. That's why corporations don't use it. It just wouldn't work for them.
Sure.
Then there's things like tying it into charity and stuff like that really help statistically increase contributions. So we look at how, that's fundamentally the question is, when you offer something to pay what you want, is why would somebody pay anything? And then ultimately, once somebody does pay something, how do we encourage them to pay more? How do we encourage them to be more generous? And then of course, there's a lot of kind of tricks and tactics and techniques that I teach that are kind of fundamental just to psychology in general of what makes somebody more generous, what makes somebody give more. And those are things to kind of look at and see if you can incorporate in an ethical way. And here's the deal. Like, I think I always say this, you can't really scam someone with pay what you want pricing. You know what I mean? Because like if you try to do it that way, it's gonna come off that way. People aren't gonna contribute. So it has to be authentic, in the real meaning of the word, not the the cliched meaning that when everybody says be authentic online means, but like the actual way of like you have to actually be authentic about it. There has to be a real reason why, and you have to be able to express that through your sales copy, through how you speak, through the product itself, and all those reasons. So yeah, it's pretty comprehensive. If you look at it though, again, my book's Pay What You Want. It's not, it's not just a clever trick, but you guys can check out the book. If you search Pay What You Want pricing, I probably should pop up on Google somewhere. But just Tom Morkes, Pay What You Want pricing, you'll find my book, you'll find me, and it's a great place to start to actually apply Pay What You Want pricing to your products or services.
I love it. Tom, tell us where we can find you, more about what you do, more about the books you've written, etc.
Yeah, go to tommorkes.com. It's TOMMORKES.com, and you'll connect with everything I do through there probably. I have a ton of different things, but that's the focal point for everything right now. So tommorkes.com, and you can get that free courses. You can get my books, Pay What You Want books and stuff like that. You can check out Publishers Empire. You can check out all sorts of different things. I need to start blogging more though, because of all the client-based work we've done now. I haven't written a blog in like two or 3 months. It's so bad. So I'm going to get back to it. But yeah, check it out. Go to tommorkes.com. And I read and respond to every single email I get. So go for it. And any feedback you have, anything you want to know about anything I do, that's the kind of stuff that I'm happy to answer, and then it usually inspires me to go create new stuff. So ask me questions. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. Really, really appreciate it.
Totally, Claire. Thank you so much.